In a previous video, we talked about how much time it may take to colonize the solar system and how difficult it may be. This factor, along with other scenarios including culture, increased gravity on their home planet, or the inability to create technology, may cause aliens to remain local, either only on their home planet or just in their home star system. We have no idea if faster than light travel or even traveling at the speed of light is possible, and if it's not, this could be another factor, and aliens see no reason to make vast and time-consuming distances to colonize star systems far out of their reaches. After all, to solve the issue of your species dying out due to remaining on one planet, it is as simple as expanding out into your home star system and colonizing several bodies, spreading out your species. A nuclear war may happen on Earth, but how affected would future Martians be by that war? Really and truly, if an entire society exists there by then, it would only be the psychological and perhaps trade factors that would be affected. Our species would endure as it always has, and Earth will too. So it is possible aliens operate in a similar way. As stated in one of the previous entries, we really have no idea how far we can take science and technology, though unlike the hopefulness that aliens simply know of methods we don't, it could be that we all have come up with the same methods that proved impossible in execution. There have been so many proposed solutions to the issues of interstellar travel, generational ships, how to keep in regular contact with a colony located in another star system, how one would terraform a planet. Are megastructures viable solutions? Can biology expand without it giving itself to becoming technological? All the solutions to these problems and questions have flaws and uncertainties. Fusion rockets have been speculated to provide an effective, efficient, and energy and fuel conservative ways to travel at fast speeds. This would work by using nuclear pulse propulsion to accelerate a ship to several percent the speed of light, possibly as fast as 7%. However, the size of such a fusion reactor, achieving and maintaining sustained fusion reactions, and achieving the necessary power-to-mass ratio for efficient spacecraft operation are all problems faced in this kind of propulsion system that would seem viable and doable, considering we already use fusion energy. Problems similar or different to this are present in all of the hypothetical ways you could invent a propulsion system that would accelerate you to speeds viable to actually colonize the galaxy in a reasonable time. However, propulsion systems may not be the only brick wall. There's a lot about space we don't know. It's possible we haven't discovered an even more confusing and impossible uncertainty in science that would bring our technological advancement to a halt. How do we know this isn't a universal frustration and inevitability that all civilizations come to? The zoo hypothesis is a popular solution in the Fermi paradox, and there exist several versions of this theory. However, in short, ask yourself the question of what we do to primitive species here on Earth. What do we do with native tribes who are in colonized lands? Zoos and reservations, and even worse, are the answers to this, and some of these reservations are off limits to the public too. What if aliens have already done this to all species in the galaxy, designated them into different categories, and accordingly placed boundaries? The less advanced civilizations should receive no contact or invitation into the galactic civilization, and merely should be studied and or watched. And similarly, the more advanced civilizations become part of the original civilization. The movie Contact, based on Carl Sagan's novel, showed an idea that a galactic spanning civilization may feel we are simply not ready for proper inclusion into their civilization, and they may slowly but surely reveal themselves. What if Earth is a zoo? Do aliens know we're here but our planet is a reservation or zoo? Any reasons may be both valid and invalid, as again, we have no idea what an alien species may do this for, and we may not ever know why an alien species we discover does anything it does. Something so drastically different than you is completely unpredictable. However, a frightening possibility is the thought of a probe that watches our planet, waiting for a moment when our species comes close to advancing too far, and so the probe releases a massive EMP that sends us back to the Stone Age. What if an alien species, or even a long-extinct alien species, set up probes that either continue to do as programmed or have malfunctioned and or gained sentience and went AWOL, essentially, attempting to suppress any species that might create more of these said machines, or may become a threat due to their increasing technological advancements and intelligence? If we discover a machine civilization in the galaxy, that may be more frightening than actually discovering a biological civilization, because then we must ask ourselves, what happened to the original biological civilization that the machine civilization evolved from, and why do they not exist anymore? Did they simply become technological, or did they lose control of their artificial intelligence and machines? While 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water, and liquid water itself seems to be common in the universe, such as in permafrost in comets and possibly asteroids, stable surface oceans of liquid water are currently thought to be relatively rare, with Earth being the only known example in our own solar system. It's possible life is rare due to the conditions for surface oceans to form being extremely coincidental events or exceptional events. We may be the only planet that has formed surface oceans along with breathable air and a stable magnetic field. Several factors make life possible on Earth that I've named, and several factors play into the possibility that the planet will have exposed surface oceans. As right now, it's possible that only subsurface oceans are common. Obviously, being in the habitable zone of your star plays a crucial role. However, other factors such as a thick enough atmosphere to prevent the water from boiling away into space, strong enough gravity to hold on to its atmosphere and water vapor, along with others. However, NASA scientists have reported that many exoplanets, including those in the habitable zone of their stars, could harbor oceans. So it is still possible that oceans are not rare, and ocean worlds may in fact be normal and not a rarity as well. The ancient alien theory, or ancient astronaut theory as it's sometimes called, is basically sort of a pseudoscientific theory that posits that we have in fact come in contact with aliens before, just in the very ancient past. This theory is largely credited to Erich von Däniken from his 1968 book Chariots of the Gods, but you probably know it from the History Channel's Ancient Aliens show, hosted by Giorgio Tsoukalos. The theory mostly tries to explain how architecture such as the pyramids of Giza could have been constructed without the use of advanced technology, or, I should say, technology we have now. However, while this is a fun science fiction concept, it really has no basis, and honestly, in my opinion, I find this theory a little bit ridiculous. Modern humans refer to Homo sapiens, us, which originated around 200 to 300,000 years ago. We are literally the same species. The only difference between us and ancient people is we possess far more knowledge and education. That does not mean ancient Egyptians couldn't be smart like any human today and come up with strategies for moving stone blocks, and that does not mean they cannot come up with advanced mathematical concepts such as geometry or other math that would be needed to build pyramids. However, I guess this could be a solution to the Fermi paradox in a much different way. Perhaps instead of them visiting us in the ancient past, there exists either an ancestor civilization, or maybe aliens came across our planet millions of years ago and just observed the fauna. Maybe they placed a probe in the solar system to keep track of the evolution of life on Earth. Ultimately though, at least in my opinion, it seems unlikely aliens visited humans any time in our history. One mystery and question about astrobiology and our intelligence in general is the role mathematics actually play. Is our capacity for complex mathematical thinking a product of our specific evolutionary path, or is it a universal trait that emerges in any species reaching a certain level of intelligence? We don't know yet. However, we do know that some animals possess a limited understanding of numbers. That said, it's not counting in the way humans typically think about it. Instead, certain animals use subitizing, which is the ability to instantly recognize small quantities of something without counting them individually. For example, if you see two objects in front of you, then you pretty much instinctively know there are only two without counting them because your brain can subitize and understand the quantity without actually taking the time to count. And while it becomes less reliable with larger numbers, there are still ways animals might distinguish more or less. A dog might choose a bowl with more food simply because it looks bigger. The dog doesn't need to count every piece of food, it can just recognize that one bowl has a larger quantity of food than the other. But even this process of recognizing quantities isn't guaranteed for an alien species evolving in a much different planet. If the environment that shaped their evolution simply didn't have the same circumstances that caused subitizing and mathematics to develop in the brain, then they may have no understanding of it. Imagine that they didn't need to estimate the number of predators or prey. It's hard to imagine a planet that didn't have the concept of the food chain we know, but you never know. What if all the animals on this hypothetical planet evolved as herbivores only? Would you need those basic neurological survival mechanisms such as being able to note the number of prey or predators in a group if all you ever look for is plant life? This type of civilization is not impossible, and if it's in the norm for intelligent life in the universe, then this ties into the idea that we are simply more advanced than aliens. Aliens like this would be unable to build rockets or radio technology, and really, they would be extremely limited in any technology, if having any at all. This would make it extremely difficult to actually detect such a mathless civilization. As I stated in one of the very first entries, the actual effect life had on Earth was to transform the Earth's environment and eventually develop photosynthesis. However, photosynthesis really does nothing besides help life on Earth. Essentially, its only true purpose is to create oxygen as a byproduct of its conservation of light energy into chemical energy. Similarly, before the development of photosynthesis, the microbial life that existed only worked to help itself survive and to help transform Earth's environment so that complex life could emerge. Based on that alone, it's likely that life simply isn't needed for a planet. It does nothing to help the planet, solar system, or its parent star. It only helps to create more of itself. That's part of what life is defined as too. Living organisms that grow, reproduce, are capable of functional activity and continual change preceding death. If it's true that this is entirely unnecessary in the grand scheme of the universe, then it's possible life in general is rare and could be a fluke of sorts. It's possible we are not even meant to be here, and this is merely luck at the highest degree in play. And if that's true, we won an astronomical lottery simply by just existing. The conditions for life are also entirely improbable. If we look at our own planet, look at what had to happen for everything to just fall into place so that life and complex life could arise. We have a moon located at just the right distance and is the perfect size for the tides. We are located at just the right distance from our parent star. We have a planet like Jupiter that blocks major asteroids that would spell the end for life on Earth every few million years. Not to mention Earth itself, the perfect size, the perfect level of gravity, the perfect chemical properties, the perfect amount of plate tectonics at work, and a huge saltwater ocean from where life can emerge and eventually make its way on land. Oh, and not to mention the fact that we have a strong magnetic field that not a lot of planets seem to have, or it wasn't powerful enough to keep their atmospheres from getting stripped away over time. In short, it's possible our existence and the existence of life on Earth is a matter of astronomical luck beyond any type of luck you could possibly imagine. It means that we are one of the rarest byproducts of the universe, so much so that it's possible it only happened a few times in the entire existence of the universe. We base a lot of our assumptions on where an alien civilization would be on where we and other life on Earth would prefer to be, and that's because we've never seen or detected an advanced alien civilization, and we ourselves aren't capable of interstellar colonization yet. So everything we can reasonably assume as to where to find aliens is based entirely on us. We often make assumptions like those behind SETI efforts, that alien life would be drawn to Earth-like water-rich planets orbiting stable G2V yellow dwarf stars like our Sun, or smaller stars such as red dwarfs. And so those stars are the star systems we usually look for evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. We also tend to assume that energy collection is a major priority for advanced civilizations, which leads to theories about structures like Dyson swarms being built around stars to harvest their energy. But if maximizing energy output is truly a priority, then for an advanced civilization who has already mastered the ability to travel at interstellar distances, realistically there are far more powerful stars than the Sun in our galaxy, and while they're rare, they still exist in the billions. The major problem is that these massive stars typically have very hostile environments and short lifespans, making them unlikely candidates for life to evolve naturally. But some types of giant stars can produce vast amounts of energy, several times more than the Sun produces. Though they burn out quickly and end in violent supernovae, it's still conceivable that an advanced alien civilization might abandon its home system and instead travel from one high-energy supergiant to another. They could set up around a giant star, exploit its immense energy output for a few million years, and then move on before the star explodes, repeating this cycle across the galaxy. They could do a number of things, from operating as a civilization attempting to study the universe to using the star as a power source for virtual reality paradise, as I briefly discussed during the virtual reality solution in part 1. A civilization like this would be extremely hard to detect and would be like a needle in a haystack, and they could literally be anywhere in the galaxy at any star or on their way to a new star. Since 1945, we've possessed the ability to destroy our entire civilization by a simple press of a few buttons. If the United States, Russia, and China all launched nukes at each other right now, it would pretty much be the end of the world for everyone else as well. And this has been a truth and fear we've lived with ever since then. The entire Cold War was centered around the absolute fear of nuclear war due to the tensions between the Soviet Union and the United States. Whether we dodged a bullet or have yet to come across that bullet is unknown. However, it's possible alien civilizations, especially ones more advanced than us, may not have such restraint. As our civilization technologically advances, our ability to wreak even more havoc amongst our own species, planet, and galaxy at large becomes easier and easier. With technology comes the serious danger of destroying yourself through the development of weapons, and really, not even weapons could cause your own extinction, as it's very obvious by now that if nuclear war doesn't get us, our destruction to the climate as a whole definitely will if we don't act now. While it's a common talking point and joke that aliens would be far better than humans, it's possible that advancement with technology comes the possibility and maybe even inevitability of destroying yourself, and could be true for all civilizations or a good majority of them. Even if your civilization survives the atomic age, it's still uncertain how many filters are ahead that we would need to survive in order to become a galactic spanning civilization. I'm sure most of you have seen Star Wars and remember the Death Star, basically a giant super weapon with the capability to destroy an entire planet. While that's totally out of the realm of possibility for our civilization at our current stage of development, it's not impossible for a weapon like that to become a reality one day and not just a work of fiction, or maybe it already is a weapon. If a weapon like that were to exist though, we would probably be able to detect the immense energy that it would produce pretty easily. However, who's to say this kind of weapon isn't just sitting dormant after a huge planetary war that ended an entire civilization's presence in a star system millions of years ago? If our civilization can master destruction of ourselves in just 300,000 years, then a civilization like ours who's been around for 3 million years may have destroyed themselves with an even scarier and more destructive weapon, such as a Death Star, or even other theoretical superweapons such as targeted gamma ray bursts, solar lasers, or strange matter bombs. We simply have no idea what horrifying superweapons that make atomic bombs look like grenades await us in the future. There may be a universe full of graveyards and remnants of civilizations that destroyed themselves through warfare or ignorance awaiting us, and we might even join them sooner or later. The real main issue with interstellar travel in general is time and distance, but this is the same for communication as well. For radio transmissions to travel across the entire galaxy, they are beholden to the speed of light just like we are, and pretty much everything else that exists in space-time. And this isn't the only factor that plays into communication between star systems. Energy is a huge factor, as for a civilization to actually communicate with a radio transmitter that repeats in all directions constantly, they would need to build a huge radio beacon in space that is constantly screaming in all directions of space. This would be entirely improbable and too energy wasteful, and what would be the purpose? Just to announce your existence to an empty and seemingly dead universe? As stated, radio transmissions cannot travel faster than the speed of light, as far as we know. This means an alien transmission detected from a star system 500 light years away from Earth would have been sent 500 years ago. This is even worse for civilizations located tens of thousands of light years away. A civilization that sent a transmission 300,000 years ago may not even still be around even if we receive it tomorrow, and moreover, they may have abandoned the idea of contacting other civilizations thousands of years after the signal was first sent. Imagine their surprise that some random civilization picked up their ancient message. In our minds, this would be like someone responding to a 300-year-old Instagram DM, and even more so, that Instagram DM would be answered by a complete stranger who you know nothing about besides the fact that they got your message. Based on our own understanding of the universe, contact may be too time-consuming and unreliable considering these transmissions have to cross extremely vast distances and will take decades upon centuries upon several millennia to reach their destination depending on where it's sent. Wasting your resources and energy on this when it could be better spent on other things may be a reason for the Great Silence, and perhaps the idea of contacting aliens only occurs for a short time in a civilization's history. We may someday conclude either we are alone or that it's pointless to contact aliens when nobody seems to be listening, caring, or responding. At some point, maybe we'll take the hint that contact is not something others are interested in. What if someone contacted us after we stopped caring? Would we respond either? When thinking about life on Earth, it's a true fact that as of right now, the number of species living on Earth does not even cover 1% of all the species that have ever lived on this planet. It's estimated that at least 99% of all species that have ever lived on Earth have went extinct, and out of all those species, as far as we know, never gained the level of intelligence we have to the point of being able to launch ourselves into space and be in the talks of colonizing other planets already. Not even the other members of our genus were able to gain the same intelligence we have to be able to build and launch rockets or even to form modern society as we know it. And due to us having to go only by one planet, since this is the only planet we know to harbor life and intelligent life, it stands to reason that we have to consider, because of that premise, that intelligent life may be exceedingly rare, and even may be a fluke of evolution. It took microbial life billions of years to evolve into complex life, and it took complex life hundreds of millions of years to evolve into sufficiently intelligent life, and again, it only ever happened once. And it's very possible our intelligence and ability to build and use rockets is not something that was supposed to happen, and we may have only ever been meant to be another hunter in the jungle. Since 1945, as previously stated, our species achieved an ability to destroy itself, and if it takes us this short of a time, then it might take aliens around the same amount, less or more time. We just don't know. What we do know, however, is a lot more technologies exist now that have a potential for future danger. One of the most obvious is AI, and the fear behind it. But generalized AI such as Skynet is not the only danger to our entire society and species as a whole that AI possesses. The development and deployment of weapon systems that can select and engage targets without human intervention are serious concerns. While some militaries already employ AI in drones, the risk of misjudgment and the difficulty of attributing responsibility for actions taken by autonomous weapons are major ethical and safety concerns. Imagine if an AI system launched nuclear warheads without human intervention, either due to a malfunction or faulty programming. An AI does not need to be sentient to do this. Technologies such as nuclear weapons and artificial intelligence are just some of the new technologies we've had to deal with, but who's to say what's to come next? It's possible all civilizations reach a point where they develop a technology that may seem beneficial, and they may see the potential consequences but assume they have control, or maybe there are even unforeseen consequences, and the technology ends up becoming the doombringer of that civilization. The fastest man-made object we've ever developed was the Parker Solar Probe, and while it reached incredible speeds of 430,000 miles per hour or 692,000 kilometers per hour, it still would be far, far too slow to leave the solar system. Space is incomprehensibly big, and that is one of the main problems in space exploration as a whole. You would need an enormous amount of energy to reach speeds as fast as 10 to 20% the speed of light, and even these speeds are extremely slow in comparison to the vast distances you would need to cross. Even if a civilization were to develop the ability to travel at the speed of light, which is currently thought to be impossible, if they wanted to reach a star 600 light years away, they would have to travel that 600-year journey, and at 20% the speed of light, that journey would take 3,000 years. As stated in the solar system colonization video, there's a huge amount of issues related to isolation in space and taking such a long journey on a generational ship, which has a number of unpredictabilities to it. When thinking of aliens in this scenario, and if we're assuming they came to the same brick walls we have thus far, it's possible they give up on space exploration eventually and just colonize bodies around their home star, or focus on maintaining their planet for as long as they can. Space might be way too vast to attempt to establish a multi-planetary civilization beyond your star system, and a galactic spanning civilization would be an even greater challenge, which might prove either impossible or improbable and useless to attempt, as it's a waste of resources to spread your civilization out so vastly. And there's no telling what could happen from such isolation and distance from one another, especially because communication will be limited to the speed of light. Consider that colonies spread that far apart may eventually forget where they came from, and thus they become aliens to one another. The adaptation to a planet is also inevitable, and after millions of years, the same species that adapted to two different planets may be so alien to one another, they would never even know that they were the same species. This reason, along with a multitude of other reasons, may be why vast space colonization is impractical. The miniaturization of technology has been going on since the 1870s, with the advancement of two-dimensional electronic circuits used for the manipulation of information, and later transistors in the 1950s. Since then, we've seen things such as computers the size of buildings turn into laptops and desktops, or phones the size of bricks turn to being only 6 inches long. This trend of miniaturizing technology may continue into the nanotechnological stage, which we're already seeing advancements for. And the general idea is that if we invented something, aliens far more advanced than us would have likely already invented it as well. At some point in the far future, we and aliens may choose to become nanotechnological. However, this gets into some serious questions of how you would detect a civilization that has indeed become nanotechnological. A nanotechnological cloud resembling dust would look exactly how it resembles dust. If a cloud such as that were to be orbiting a star, using its energy to power its civilization, they would be completely undetectable to us. A civilization like this would most likely prefer the cold vacuum of space as well, as the cold is good for sufficient computation. This type of civilization would most likely look like a cloud of dust orbiting a star, as previously stated. And it may seem strange at first, but if this dust were to emit infrared, it would be no surprise, as dust does emit infrared when it gets close enough to a star. Interestingly enough, a star such as this was discovered in 1890 and later observed in 2017 to have unusual and erratic dimming patterns. These dips in brightness are not regular like those caused by orbiting planets, and various hypotheses, both natural and artificial, have been talked about in an attempt to explain the star's unusual behavior. Could we have detected a nanotechnological civilization orbiting a star? I feel like this is unlikely, though it is true that a civilization like that would be undetectable, and therefore we would never know if we were truly observing a civilization. We can only chalk it up to natural solutions, as there would be insufficient evidence to support a theory of alien activity. In 2023, a genetic analysis by researchers in China found evidence suggesting that 930,000 years ago, the ancestors of modern humans suffered a massive bottleneck in their population, which brought them down to a mere 1,000 across the entire planet, and this period apparently lasted 100,000 years. Several other proposed bottlenecks have occurred in both modern humans and human ancestors, which either suggest we are a very stubborn, uneasy-to-kill species, or that we won an incredible lottery. Either way, Earth knows extinction events very well. But in the context of the intelligent life that has existed on this planet, it remains a fact that only one made it out of both the Ice Age and Stone Age alive, that being us. And while this remains a human and earthly bias, if an alien civilization evolved on a planet such as Earth, they would have to deal with events such as climate change or volcanic activity, especially if they come to a similar situation of their own technology affecting the climate. It's possible intelligent life and life in general suffers so regularly from mass extinctions that there simply isn't a chance to develop sufficient enough intelligence. And even if they do, how can an intelligent primitive species be sure they will survive the next few 100,000 years of their Stone Age? It seems we barely survived, only being able to do so through inbreeding. And even then, we've just barely dodged dozens of potential nuclear conflicts, such as the famous 1983 nuclear false alarm that if circumstances were different, we would have most likely went extinct in 1983. There is no guarantee that aliens get as lucky as we have, or have the same restraint as we do. Often we like to think of aliens as being more friendly and evolved past war, but who's to say that they don't go extinct during their long age of warfare early in their history? Among other events such as asteroid collisions, climate change, deadly solar storms, supervolcano eruptions, artificial intelligence disasters, biological weapons, disease, and a dozen other scenarios that we ourselves have to live in fear of, there really is no telling how other life fares under these threats, and realistically, our modern society has never dealt with these threats firsthand, so who's to say that we will even survive these? Extinction could be inevitable for life across the universe. While it's constantly talked about whether we would be able to see alien civilizations and their technosignatures or biosignatures, it's also a safe question to ask of whether alien civilizations can see us and our technology, and the answer is not many or any at all may have actually noticed us. At this current stage in our technological development, our technology is barely detectable to anyone far outside our local star systems. Putting this into perspective, the range in which our radio signals have seeped into space is only about 200 light-years in a galaxy that spans 100,000 light-years across, and on top of that, we've only been broadcasting radio into space since the 19th century, making it unlikely that a civilization 166 to 200 light-years away or further would actually be able to detect us. And to detect our modern technology, those technosignatures haven't been traveling long enough for many civilizations to actually know we're here and technological. First of all, there is the main issues of time and distance. Even if an alien civilization were to detect us right now, it's unlikely we will receive their reply in a reasonable amount of time and distance. If an alien civilization detected us from 250 light-years away, if they haven't figured out how to send messages at faster than light distances, then we wouldn't receive that message for 250 years. Radio waves are limited to the speed of light like all other things within space-time. The second major thing is whether alien civilizations would even be interested in our radio signals, or would they even be interested in space exploration as a whole. An alien civilization, even one far more advanced than us, may not be interested in space exploration. Imagine evolving and developing on a planet where the stars are blocked, or due to circumstances that trap you on the planet, such as high gravity levels, or being stuck under an ice sheet ocean such as on Europa. Again, we have absolutely no clue what aliens will care about or what their history or society is like. And while it's a popular belief that aliens would have mastered space travel over us, it's fair to say we don't know if they cared enough or had the resources, desire, means, or ability to actually become a spacefaring civilization. The Great Filter suggests the idea that the reason we don't see alien civilizations all over the place is because something, which could be one of many things, or several things at once, that causes those civilizations to go extinct. And while we know we have survived so far, the universe at large seems dead. A few ideas of what the Great Filter could be have emerged, which range from technological developments such as atomic energy to artificial intelligence to contact with alien civilizations itself, and even the idea that we've passed the Great Filter. However, the idea stands that once a species gains intelligence, or maybe even before, there is some kind of extinction filter they must survive to thrive as a spacefaring civilization, and many civilizations simply don't pass this filter. Or it could be multiple filters, which may make intelligent life even rarer. According to Drake's equation, aliens really should be all over the universe and our own galaxy, yet we see a silent, dead void of natural process after natural process, star after star, planet after planet, and no evidence to support the idea that alien life is out there, besides mathematical and statistical certainties that it becomes even more of a stretch to suggest that we are alone. However, it could be that aliens simply don't survive long enough to be noticed. Who's to say we will either? After all, we've only been a spacefaring civilization for 68 years.